You are here today for the workshop on risky play, and we're going to talk all things risky play today. This is one of my favorite topics. I think it is can be very challenging sometimes as a parent, but it also has a lot of great rewards. So I am Jamie. I am the Family Engagement Specialist at Child Care Answers. I have a background in preschool education as well as special education. And I'm also a mom too. I have at home, I have a little girl. She just turned 1, so we are engaging in all sorts of risky play as it relates to that age, just curling around and doing things that are a little bit more challenging and just trying to let go a little bit as well. So I am learning alongside you today and being challenged as well. So hopefully you find something today that will help you with your children. So we are Child Care Answers, and this is your local child care resource and referral agency. We serve specifically Hamilton, Marion, and Hendricks County, but the Child Care Resource and Referral agencies is a whole network across the state. And so there are a lot of different, well, not a lot, but there's 4 others of us who serve different counties. So if you are here today and you do not live in Hamilton, Hendricks, or Marion County, please feel free just to let me know and you want to get some additional resources for your county, and we can connect you to who would best serve you. Well, I like to always mention that we are very active on social media, whether you found us there and found this workshop through social media or through a different avenue. But try to follow us on social media. We do a lot of updates in terms of maybe family scholarships. Sometimes we do just tips and tricks for parenting or activity ideas. We are working on our TikTok got banned for a minute because it's a whole long story, but anyways, we're going to be up and running that again here in a second. So I'm excited about that because that gives a lot of like visuals on how to do some of these activities. And so yeah, follow us on social media and we would be happy to share all that information with you there. Which boots kind of show how your child plays? Are they a little hesitant about outdoor play, or are they like involved in outdoor play? Where are they? So we got some A's, okay, a little hesitant. Some C's, yep, C's. Yeah, I feel like mine's like a solid B, but that's it's hard to tell when they're so little too. Great, well, thanks for participating there. I think that just helps give me a mindset of where your children are at in terms of outdoor play, and then also maybe what you're looking for in this workshop. Okie dokie. So we're going to get started here with risky play. Risky play is a type of play that really makes most of us parents hold our breath and take a step back and try not to intervene. It is any activity that has a perceived element of risk. So this might be perceived to you or to your child, but it also helps our children really test their knowledge and their limits on how far they can go with their bodies and their critical thinking, looking forward into what would happen if I did this, or what would happen if I jumped this far. Young children may not know of the risk because they haven't experienced those limitations or that danger. So this can include risks of rough and tumble play, playing at really great heights, like climbing a tree or going fast, rolling down a hill. And then it also can be some sort of play that would involve some sort of tools that could potentially be harmful if not used appropriately and safely, or even some elements of danger like fire or like water in certain situations. We are going to talk probably not about the dangerous elements today, but we're going to talk about a lot of the other ones. Young children seek risks and challenges. I'm sure you have seen this. And if they don't seek risks and challenges, maybe that's why you're here, to see if you can get some ideas today. And it's very normal for children to do this and to test their limits and to really engage in this play, especially when they are playing imaginatively. So I think it's important to note that risky play is not the same as dangerous play. Oftentimes, you might hear that, and if you're here, you already probably know this, but we want children to be safe while they're engaged in risky play. So we want to try to eliminate all those perceived risks that our children can become, that could possibly be harmful to the child. So according to Heather Shoemaker, author of It's Okay to Go Up the Slide, definitely recommend that book. It's okay if it's not hurting people or property. So thinking through that risky play and what it is, and it's okay if it's not hurting people or property. And we'll talk a little bit more about setting that up in a little bit. So healthy risks offer children a lot of benefits, and they're all right here on this screen. So intellectually, young children are learning to grow and how to basically run a risk assessment. So they're looking at something, saying, what would happen if I do this? And if I don't do that, and then trying it out. And then maybe that was too much for them. And so they push it back a little bit, or maybe they thought, wow, I did that easily, and they're going to try it again, maybe a little bit further, a little bit faster. So they're engaging in this risk assessment, which I think is a pretty cool way to think about it, because we do that as adults all the time. They are also critically thinking and observing, classifying, and just taking in what's going on around them. They also are emotionally engaged. Taking risks really helps them figure out who they are and what type of person they are, in the sense of, am I going to seek adventure, or am I a little bit shy and I want to sit back and watch first and then move forward, which both are okay. And both are just about who you are. I tend to be the latter, take it in and then I try, or I observe and then I try. But we all have or know of a child or of a person who's just going to go head first and try it as soon as they can. And then it helps them understand what they're good at, where their limits are, but then also how to ask for help if they need it, and then have this sense of pride and power. Socially, they are developing tools for cooperative play and teamwork. And the most obvious benefit of risky play is just that body awareness. If you think about how fast their bodies are growing, they really are engaging and just having to be aware of their bodies all the time, because it's changing all the time. So it helps them get strength and gain balance, and then dexterity, as well as that whole concept of like where my body is in this space, that spatial awareness. So risks make children, and they help children be more careful. I wanted to touch base real quick about the risks of doing this play. So the real risks of the risky play is children can get bumps and they can get bruises. They can get skinned knees, and they can get sad and frustrated, which I like to encourage families that that's okay if they get sad or frustrated, because it helps them navigate those feelings and to build that resilience. Obviously, we're not going to put them in a harmful situation or in a situation that's really going to hurt them socially or emotionally, but to fail at jumping across like a path or something, that's an appropriate place for them to learn, okay, I didn't make it, what can I do, or how can I do this to move forward? And then also, I think the risks for us as adults is just that feeling of guilt or anxiety if they do get hurt. Maybe I should have been watching them closer. Maybe I shouldn't have let them do this. This doesn't feel safe, but I know it is logically. And so thinking through those are real feelings and emotions that we do experience. And I think just acknowledging those is important when we're talking about risky play. And then just the idea of like having to cope with the time and the mess and the bandages or the feelings. Sometimes I know for me, after a long day of work, I just don't want to deal. And that mess or the bandages and those feelings can really just add stress to the day on the grown-ups end. But sometimes it's important just to make space for that and know that, like, okay, we're going to go outside, we're going to play, we're going to jump, I'm going to let them climb. If they fall, the Band-Aids are ready, I'm ready with the new change of clothes, just setting up those experiences for your children. And then just adjusting to the fact that as your little child is growing in the risky play, they're not going to need you as much physically or even emotionally, because they're growing and they're developing and they're becoming their own little person. And so that also can feel it can bring up some feelings. All right. So what we say to our children when they're engaged in this play is so critical, and it can really impact the play and their feelings as they're engaged. So when we send too many safety message to our children, they can get the idea that they can't get hurt because adult will always protect them, or there are rules that are in place, the adult is there, and those will always protect me. And that's not the case, because unfortunately we're not always there, and sometimes the rules don't protect us. And so helping them understand that and finding and navigating that, there are times to say be careful, there are times to say you'll break your neck or watch out, but if we're saying that every day and every time when they're out on the playground, maybe we want as adults to step back and evaluate why we're saying that, and then think of different ways to phrase it so we're encouraging their play and encouraging the risk, while also giving them tools to critically think through that next step. So I struggle with this a lot, especially when I was as a preschool teacher at the playground. Every word I just want to be like, be careful, but we're going to give you some tools and language to switch it up, to maybe flip the script, if you will, a little bit, because it definitely can be challenging. So I wanted to put this on here because I think that this helps, again, just set that mindset. Kids of all ages seek challenges, not just in early childhood. They look different when they are 3 versus 16, but we all have experienced these challenges with our own children, and then our own development and growth as children and then adults and moving forward. So our job is just to equip them with the tools to cope, and then equip them with the tools to be brave enough so that we can let go and then let them face these risks and challenges. And I really liked that idea that I am setting up my daughter for success by giving language and opportunity to just have these chances of risk assessment. So things you can say instead of be careful or don't break your neck. I think our words that we say is basically that biggest tool we have in this, and to equip our children. So here are some phrases that I have used or I have experienced. Others say that I really liked. The first one is, do you feel safe? Especially if they're climbing on top of the monkey bars, asking, do you feel safe right now? And if they say yes, then great. Most of the time, if they say yes, I have noticed that my preschoolers will just keep on going and they're completely fine. But I do have children respond, no, I don't feel safe. And so then I can ask, do you want me to help you? And they might say yes, or I could say something like, where should your foot go next? Because now I'm starting to guide them and guide their thinking. If it's not an immediate risk, then I think, giving them those tools to think. And if they're not too scared, you can read the situation, obviously. Maybe they're balancing on something, or they are trying to grab something and they're bouncing on a little stool. You can ask them, like, does that feel wobbly? Is that too high? You can say things like, it's okay to try. You might make a mistake, but that's okay. I make mistakes all the time, and have a conversation about that. If you see that they're climbing really high, maybe on the play set, saying something like, when I don't feel safe, I climb down. So you're giving them the idea without saying, be careful, or that's not safe. You're just telling them, like, I don't feel safe, I climb down. And it's kind of giving them that thought. I will say that these are for more of your preschool age. Toddlers probably won't respond as well to this and some of these, but I think you can start saying things like, do you feel safe? Or does that feel wobbly to them? And then also practicing and modeling, and then saying, like, we've practiced this, now let's see you try. Are you ready to try? Giving them, again, that ownership. And then lastly, if it's an area where you feel like, there's more opportunities for falling or tumbling, you can say something like, show me how you can be careful. So it helps them just actively try to be careful and gives them those words to try. So when we're letting go and we're taking risks and letting them take risks, we want to start with just doing that individual risk assessment. So looking around the environment, whether it's the playground, the living room, grandma's house, whatever, wherever, I'm just looking around. What are the risks for engaging in maybe either rough and tumble play or running or jumping? So looking into that. And then you just modify your risk for the age of your child. You know that best for your child. And there's also tips and tools that we can always talk through with you if you would like, just to better understand how you can set up that environment. And then just set limits. I always set a couple limits before I engage in play. Like, okay, this is where you can run. You can go to this tree and this tree, but you cannot go past that tree. So setting those boundaries and those limits and starting small. So you're balancing on a log or a wall, or maybe just jumping off a stump or a large rock or climbing up the slide, which I would argue is okay in a lot of situations. So I think just thinking of ways to engage your child at where they're at and then helping yourself move forward as well. Now, just as a little self-assessment, I would love to know, is it hard for you to let go during this play? Is this something that is challenging for you? I think I'm kind of in the yellow to green area, that semi okay. I tend to get a little nervous, and that's just who I am as a person when it comes to some of this play, but I know the benefits of it. So I really work hard on myself to try to engage children in this type of play. And I think there are ways for us to like be okay with that. If you were more in the red zone and it's just really hard for you, thinking of just some affirmations to tell yourself while your child is climbing that tree. Challenges are an opportunity for growth. I know I'm building into them. My children are safe and cared for. I set up that risk assessment and we're good. And then this is going to help my child be resilient. And that's the end goal. I want my child to be able to take on and do things that are hard. So we're going to model risky play. It's not something that all children can do naturally. There are some children, again, who can just run headfirst into anything, and risky play is super easy for them. But we really want to do something to help guide them in that, and maybe even help guide them in safe risky play. So maybe play follow the leader, where you're jumping off logs on a hike. You can model try again. So maybe you are trying something, a new yoga move, or you're riding a bike and you ride a little faster down the hill. Model that and then say, okay, I'm going to try it again. Or if it didn't work, try it again. Taking deep breaths are good ways to calm down when you get frustrated, and just breathing in and breathing out with a full belly. And then just giving specific encouragements. I see that you climbed up to that first branch. That was amazing. Can you get to the second branch? Or maybe being very specific and, wow, I saw, because, every child says, did you see me run fast? You can say, wow, I saw you run fast. You ran from this tree to that tree. Now can you run from this tree to the slide? And just trying to give them some specific encouragements and specific directions. So we're going to kind of finish our time today just talking about some ideas that you can do for risky play. Obviously, I think the first place I go to mentally with risky play is nature. It is all about going fast and climbing high and feeling powerful. And nature is just the perfect space to do that. You don't have to build into it. You don't have to set it up. Typically, it's just there, and children are naturally curious about it. So here are some ideas for you. For your toddlers or your younger toddlers, maybe walking is where they're at. So walking fast down a slight incline, that is actually risky play. It doesn't seem risky play, but it right now my child will do it like crawling. She's not walking quite yet. And I have a little gasp if it's a little bit too deep of an incline. So just thinking through like modifying it. Maybe you're outside a park and your children, you have older children and then a toddler, maybe just finding a little hill and parking yourself right there so that they can practice running up and down it. Endless hours of fun, and they are engaged in risky play. And then you have things like balancing on ledges or on logs, which is really great activities for your infants, your youngest little ones. Actually, some sort of textures can be a little risky for them in the sense of they're learning how to different things feel, and it's for the first time. So taking them outside, I remember taking my daughter out on Easter, and she's sitting there in the grass and she hadn't been out in the grass yet. And I just watched her just like so hesitant to move forward because of the texture of the grass. And so I think, you know, just engaging them in that different textures outside and watching and being mindful of what, you know, they're picking up and putting in their mouths, but that's all part of the risky play for infants. You have creek stomping, which we have this amazing creek stomping bingo card for if you're local to Hamilton County, Hendricks, and Marion. It has a lot of different information there. And yeah, you know what creek stomping is. There's bugs, there's insects, there's frogs, there's salamanders, and then there's rocks to jump on. It's just a great opportunity to engage in things, you know, that maybe as a parent, you sometimes don't want to do because it is messy, or, you know, there is a risk of maybe getting hurt or just taking too much time, but your children will love it. And it will give them a really great night's sleep too. Climbing high on things other than trees is a great way to start small and move up. So if you're at a beach and there's like some beech wood, you go there. If you see stumps and logs, that's great too. And then just climbing up inclines with different textures. So we talked about doing tools and using tools and taking risks with tools. If you have done that before, you know that you can have a couple deep breaths, especially with that hammer and nails. I feel sometimes I get so nervous about their little fingers, but it's such a great experience, and they actually do really well if you give them those tools. And you can use with old things outside or get them some other tools, but giving them that real hammer with the real nail and putting it in a stump, if you have a stump in the back of your yard, then just practice hammering things together. That's hours of endless fun for them. And then when they're done with the nails, you can get some string and they can make a pretty string dart and make it a whole experience. But this is a risk because, you know, there's that option of hurting your thumb, or, you know, yes, you know, the risks of all these tools. There's things like small little saws that you can do. And then also something that I know some families love is whittling. And that's, some families are okay with giving their children like a small little pocket knife as long as they're with the parent to do. And some families, it's a little bit too much, especially with your younger children, obviously. So with your maybe school agers, I would say, you know, that's family appropriate and your choice. But another option that is great is a potato peeler with like a really thin stick. They also, I think, make some. I think if you like Googled like whittling peelers, you might be able to find something like that on Amazon, or, you know, wherever you like to buy your things. But a potato peeler is a great alternative where they're practicing and they get to experience that feeling, but then also it's just, it's safe. I like to tell families about a See, Think, Wonder. This is a great way to introduce the tool. And I'm going to show you this real quick with my handy dandy scissors. So scissors can be perceived as a risky tool to some families, and then also to some children, depending on the tool. So if I were to hand a preschooler these scissors, I would say this is pretty risky because it's not a preschool size scissors. I wouldn't recommend it, but, you know, sometimes we use what we have. So what you can do with the See, Think, Wonder is you just ask them real quick, like, what do you see? And they'll tell you, oh, I see scissors. And go, yeah, but what about the scissors do you see? And they might tell you, you know, they're green, and then there's gray or silver. They might tell you, you put your fingers here, they cut. But then you really want to pay draw their attention to the parts that are like a little bit dangerous. So I'm like, oh yeah, I noticed that it's like pointy here. And you talk about what they see there. And then ask, what do you think about the scissors? Like, what do you do with them? And so then they're starting to talk to you about what they do, what they think about them. Oh, they're sharp. Oh, maybe they'll give you some ideas about what they've been told in the past, like you don't run with them. Or I don't know, kids surprise you with what their comments are. I can't even begin to tell you when I've done one of these, all the funny things that they say about what they think about tools or an object. And then you just ask me, and like, I wonder, like, what can we do with this? I wonder what we can do with this. What do you think? And then talk through that. And that leads into a natural conversation about the tool without having to like say, this is scissors, you do not run with them, you do not poke with them, and you're not giving all those no. It's more just a conversation about like, here's this tool, what do you think about it, what can you do with it, oh, that doesn't sound safe, what do you think, what else can you do with it? And so just having that conversation as opposed to setting those hard no's. I think that is a great way to engage with these risky tools. So rough and tumble play is one of those other ones where I think, again, I want to stress that this is all family preference and how you want to engage with this. I have nieces and nephews, and the nephews, their rough and tumble play is so needed in their little lives. And I think it's important for children to have that physical outlet, and what you do with that and how you make that look like is best for your child. However, there are some ideas here that I'd like to share, like superhero play. I know sometimes that can be really hard. So it's like bad guy versus good guy. We're going to get our swords out. We're going to like hurt the bad guy. And it's like this whole thing, and it can be stressful. So trying to think of different ways to do this. So maybe, yes, COVID too. That's such a great point. So Luna said in the chat box, COVID makes a big difference with the comfort with rough and tumble play. And I 100% agree. I think it's harder to keep that distance when they are so engaged in that play. Some ideas, I don't know if you have a Star Wars fan at home, but maybe making shields out of cardboard, or maybe out of something in the nature, like a piece of bark or something, and using shields and doing the force, and like maybe having the force be something that's moving things or protecting them. That is one way to engage in that and have that distance, but then they can still like move their bodies in a rough and tumble way, and they're like engaged. You can also create magic wands with sticks, so it's not a sword, but you can do that and keep your distance that way. And then also there's this idea of playing superhero hide and seek, and so one person has to pretend to be invisible, and so they have the invisibility cloak on, and they're like invisible and no one can see them, and that's how you go play hide and seek. And then they have to make a noise, and then that's how they find them. Or you can get creative there with that. And then also just like those little missions, like, okay, we have to save this little truck out of the ice that we've frozen, or we have to save this little birdie who's hiding in its nest because it's scared. And so like trying to save something and go that route. And then also sticks can be amazing and then really frustrating too as a parent. So thinking through things like wands, like I said earlier, but maybe you want to have something that they fly on. It could be a broomstick. It could be, I don't know, I'm thinking vacuum because of Hocus Pocus right now. They're making a second one, in case anyone is excited about Hocus Pocus. But thinking through all of that. And then also maybe they can just build a hideout or a cave. So they're building this that is using their big muscles like rough and tumble play, but it's just a little different. And then with wrestling, again, this is every family has their own rules, and every family has their own boundaries, like with COVID, or even just with safety and that physical side of it. So there are risks with wrestling, and children can get hurt when they wrestle, but there's also some benefits. So thinking through wrestling, and if you just take a moment to think through maybe even just like wrestlers in general, like in high school or in college, they have to think through what their body can do and what it cannot do. They have to learn that physical limits, and they have to learn how to communicate that to the other person. And so sometimes even having something like a code word, like if I say bananas, that means stop. I don't want to do this anymore. Because then they're learning how to listen to other people's words and how to respect their physical boundaries as well. So just modeling that to them, especially even if like they're clinging on you and you don't want them there anymore, just say like, I want you to stop right now and you can play with this, and trying to keep that idea of like, this is my body. And if I say no more, then I'm all done. And so like helping them engage in that language when they are wrestling as well, so that they know that if someone says stop, then you need to stop and we need to check to see if they're okay. And that's how you can start the process of maybe setting up some limits there as well, and boundaries when you're engaged in wrestle play. I want to respect your time. We just have a couple more slides and then I will share everything with you. Take risks with art. It's not the same as risky play, but I always like to mention art when we talk about activities. Let them make mud pies, let them do mud paint, taking it outside with water or with nature, just being a little bit more risky with it and not cookie cutter is one way just to engage in this idea. You'll be surprised in how they use maybe some potentially harmful tools in a positive way with art as well. And then the last idea is just taking risk with proximity. I am not saying go outside and let your child play outside by themselves at a young age, but some families have a backyard that's fenced in, and that's okay to set those boundaries with you, your family, your partners, and what you would like to do in terms of this proximity. But the most important thing is you want to kind of give them the resemblance of space without really giving them the space is what I think I'm trying to say here. So establish that safe perimeter, give visual physical boundaries, and then just say something like, if can you see me? I can see you if you can see me. So talking through that and being intentional about it, and also just paying attention to where they are obviously, and what they're doing. I think just continually doing that. There are ways to play games in order to like build this skill and comfort level, and then do it in a safe way. So we talked about hide and seek. You could do walkie talkies maybe outside. And then maybe you're in the kitchen and they're in the backyard and you're doing walkie talkie, so you can still see them and you're still talking to them and you're there for them. But you know, they have this idea and resemblance of space. Chase is actually a good one for the younger children because you're still there, you're still right beside them, but you're a little bit behind and you're not like right in their visual purview. So it's gives them this feeling of like space when really, I don't know, you're right there. And then also there's some games like what's missing. You can take something from the room and see if they can find it. And so it's this idea of like looking for something, being alone, and trying to figure out what to do in those situations. So again, it's all about your comfort level as a family and being safe with that as well. But having this time just for them to explore even just a few steps in front of you is a great experience for them to like look around at the environment and say, oh, wait, like what is going on here? And take that risk assessment to see how far they're going to go. Before I go, I want you to take a minute and think through maybe one you want to try. A lot of these risks in nature. I love nature, especially this time of year. It's just so much easier to be out and about. But this is our family fun page, and on there is just a ton of summer activities and resources. We have play and learning activities. We have bingo cards for playgrounds, for splash pads, and then also we had talked about specifically the creek stomping, lots of different areas to try out. I mean, you can make it a fun bingo game or just something to cross off the list. There's a really cool calendar on there for Pride Month coming up, and just things to talk about and do for the month of Pride. So we have a lot of resources there. I think some of it will directly relate to Risky Play, and then others of it will just be great to fill some time this summer for you. Well, I am Jamie, and this is my email, jamiel@childcareanswers.org. If you have any questions or you want to like figure out how to set up an environment, maybe your backyard or anything, please feel free to email me. So thankful to be able to give this presentation today, and thanks for coming.